All right. So welcome everyone. We are talking about CSS Profile for financial aid today. I'm your presenter. My name is Carol Trone, and I serve in two roles. So I'm with the Wisconsin Coalition on Student Debt, and this is a DebtSmarts webinar. And then I also serve as Executive Director for Fair Opportunity Project, where we work directly with students in Wisconsin and in other states virtually with advising and essay review support and financial aid. So this fits into both of those worlds for me. So what is DebtSmarts? So that is the coalition. Our URL is debtsmarts.org, and so we often just call it DebtSmarts. So we are a statewide nonprofit organization. We're committed to helping students minimize their student loan debt and for borrowers to avoid unmanageable debt. So it's a pretty expansive mission. Before college, that means things like the FAFSA help, or like today's webinar on the CSS Profile. We run a Money Smart contest that happens in the winter and spring for students during college. We also help them find scholarships and help with budgeting. And then after college, we have a student loan helpline. And I encourage everyone here to share word about that. That's a free informational confidential resource, and the phone number will be at the end of the slideshow today. All right, so today what we're going to get into is first of all, just what is the profile, why we care about it here in Wisconsin, just an overview of what information it's going to ask for, and then things like how to understand the information required from parents, what kinds of assets they are requesting, and how to get the fee waiver, because this is a form that by default has a charge. We'll also talk a little bit about access in other languages, and then just some general tips, and then leave a few minutes at the end of this for your questions. All right, let's get started. Actually, well, I like doing it better than this. Let's see. Okay, so one thing to keep straight, and so for if you're like me, I think about the CSS profile sort of in the same bucket as I think about the FAFSA. But I am going to point out some important differences here that will, I think, help guide how you approach this. So first of all, the CSS profile comes from a private organization, College Board. It does not come from federal student aid. And so that actually affects then both, I guess, the access to the information and the resources that are provided to help students with this. It also means that there's going to be quite a bit of variability driven by the participating colleges and universities over what information they collect through the form. So the form is a very complex form, but there's lots of skip logic. And so each institution is the one that determines what is the information that they are asking for from the students and their parents as they are going through the form. A really important thing for everyone to note, it does not replace the FAFSA. So the FAFSA, again, is the product from federal student aid. FAFSA is free. FAFSA is what opens the door to federal aid. So think about things like Pell Grants, subsidized and unsubsidized student loans. So for that reason, the profile is different. The profile is opening up access or consideration for institutional aid. So what I recommend is that families first complete the FAFSA, because that is going to be required by every institution, and then dig into the CSS profile. So I don't know how many people here joining today are familiar with CSS Profile, whether that means they've done it as a parent themselves or as a student, or are helping students fill it out. But If you've not heard about it, you're not alone. Most colleges do not require this form. My own little tally on what the trend looks like is that there is a slight uptick in how many colleges are requiring it. By my count, it's about 270 now. Most of those colleges are private, not all, and most of those colleges tend to be fairly highly selective institutions who have the endowments where they would be giving out a fair amount of institutional aid. One thing to note, the form is only in English. And so if you are helping students, there is, and I'll go into this with a later slide, but there is some informational materials, but the form itself is only in English, and I did actually just call College Board to confirm that. And so, final bullet point here. So it's the colleges, not College Board, that's going to set their specific requirements for what information they're requesting. And the reason I highlight this distinction is because if you go through the FAFSA, it's the federal government that is deciding what information is collected from everybody. In this case, it's difficult to go through an actual prototype of the form unless you go through it specific to a college, because different colleges require different questions. And then finally, that's the URL where you're going to find the form and find information about it. All right, so how do you know who is participating? So there's a web page through College Board that shows you who is participating. This is just a screenshot that I've shared here. This is the URL above. And just in the interest of time, I'm not going to go to the actual page, but you can see here in Wisconsin, we've got 3 colleges that require it. My guess is most of us are here because the UW-Madison is now requiring, and that's a new requirement for entering students. So, but you can see again here as an example of the variability and the requirements. There are several columns here that you can toggle. So you can see who by state is going to require this. You can see whether it's going to be required of domestic students, international students, whether they require a student's non-custodial parent to provide information. Okay. Okay. So as I mentioned, UW-Madison, they are requiring it. This is a new requirement, and for any student that is applying for admission for next academic year, 26-27, those students will be required to complete the profile if they wish to be considered for institutional aid. Now, one thing to note with UW-Madison is that their policy is not changing in terms of expanding, at least in any significant way, the amount of institutional aid that they are giving. So there are some guidelines around, whether families might expect to qualify for some of that institutional aid. But this is public information because it's a public institution. They don't meet the full need of students, full financial need, and they and by the numbers I saw, it's about 37% of their student body or less that might get some sort of institutional aid. The deadline's coming up pretty quick if you are a student that is applying for the priority consideration. So they are asking families and students to complete this and submit the profile by December 1. All right, well, so now you've got that deadline. And so what is the information needed? So I'm going to go into some detail here, just so you have a sense of this. I will say before going through this list, one thing I would strongly recommend if you are tackling the profile is to set up your account with College Board if you haven't already. And by that I mean the student. Set up the student's account and start to probe into what the questions are. So one benefit of the profile is that they allow you, and in fact, I'd say they encourage you to go into the form, work on it, save it, maybe log out, get more information, come back to it. And in my experience, I have not completed a profile in one sitting. It can take several hours. And so take advantage of that and take a peek early so that you know what kinds of questions it's asking. So this list might look a little bit similar to the list that you've seen for the information that's required from FAFSA. Um, I guess one difference here is that so the FAFSA, if any of you are getting those nightmares of what it was like even a couple of years ago because it wasn't working well, FAFSA this year is truly finally simplified. It is pulling all that information directly from the student and parent tax return. It is asking just a few very basic questions about assets, and people are completing that form in my observation, in 10 to 15 minutes. This is not the case with the profile. So when it's asking for this information, be prepared that you are actually going to have to do that manual entry from your tax return, back to, and this is how fast we used to be years ago, but, it's going to refer to a certain schedule and a certain line, and you will be transferring that information. So you really do need to have these forms and the information from these forms readily handy. One thing I want to point out too is that when you start the form, it's the student that is starting it, and then the parent is going to be adding their information into the student account. And that student is going to have to know, as they're starting out on this form, are they applying for regular, early action, or early decision? Because that's going to affect what questions they see. So you can't get very far without knowing that answer. Of course, you can go back and change it, but that might change the questions that you're being asked to respond to. Okay, so as I mentioned, so one thing with profile, and this is similar to FAFSA, is that it does request the parent information. It also requests non-custodial parent information. And so to reiterate, the parent is going to put their information into the student's account. And not create their own. So that's different from FAFSA, where FAFSA has you create, a parent profile that then gets matched into the student's FAFSA profile. For parents, if you want to keep your information because you are sharing quite a bit of financial information on this form, the CSS Profile website says that you can create actually a separate student account, but you're going to be filling out the parent portion of that. Yeah, if you have a situation with non-custodial parents, so parents perhaps who never married, they're separated. One parent is maybe not in contact with the family. You first thing is check that college requirements. So go back to that participating college website that I showed you earlier and confirm. So one of those columns is one of those that says non-custodial parent information required, and it'll say yes or no. It is required for UW-Madison. That non-custodial parent is going to enter that information in a separate account. Now, I have seen and I've gotten two pieces of guidance on how this works. One has said that the non-custodial parent, is going to create that separate account. Another piece of guidance I saw, and I haven't seen a reconciliation of these two pieces, is that what will happen is that the custodial parent will fill in their information that's part of the student account, and then the parent will invite or list the non-custodial there. So in either case, the non-custodial parent for UW-Madison is going to have to provide that information. They are going to ask who is the primary parent. Now, be careful that you answer that question consistently with the way you've answered it for FAFSA. And if if both parents happen to list that they are primary, the form will get disqualified. So you can only have one parent who is primary. And as we know, family situations can be complicated. And so if you have a situation where the student's non-custodial parent is not accessible, or there are other significant reasons for why the non-custodial parent would not participate, you have to request a waiver of providing this information. There's more details about what they're going to request on the CSS Profile website, but you have to give specific details. You have to give documentation. And so that documentation might be things that come from your school. It might come from a court decree. So I did just look pretty thoroughly on the UW-Madison's website. I did not see a waiver form there. So that is, many colleges, that's what you're going to do is you would go to the college financial aid website. You would see their policies. I don't see Madison's posted. So if this is your situation and you are going to request or need to request a waiver, I encourage you to contact them early. All right, well, what are assets? Again, the profile is going to go into quite a bit more detail in requiring the information than the FAFSA does. So here's a listing of what information you are going to be expected to provide. And what are you not going to be required to report? It will be things like retirement accounts, pension plans, personal belongings that you have. And then the last three items on this list, it depends. It depends on the college and their requirements. So I have filled out or helped students fill out a profile where the home equity of their primary home is required. A caution there is there are strategies for how you list that information. I do have a document that goes into a lot more detail about all of these things that I will share out along with this recording after today. So it depends. I could not see the listing of whether Madison is requiring that question. They have said that they are using a simplified version of the profile, and so that to me means that they may be skipping over some of this information. Similarly, it depends on the college whether they're going to ask for the cash value of life insurance or inheritances or settlements if they are either already received or it's pretty certain that they're going to be received. So again, just to reiterate things to note, it's going to depend on the college. It's going to depend on the institution, whether or not they ask the question about your home equity, your retirement assets, insurance values. When you plug in the CSS code for the colleges that you want to receive this information, that's what will prompt whether these questions come up or not and whether you need to answer them. If you're unsure, two things I would suggest. One is contact the financial aid office of the college that you're applying to that requires this form. And there's also an explanations and special circumstances section. Okay, so another big difference between the profile and FAFSA is FAFSA, the first F stands for free. The CSS profile is not free. They do give you certain situations where you can get a waiver. So if you are a student who's taken the SAT and you've already qualified for that waiver, then because this is also another College Board product, it'll automatically be loaded into your account that there is no charge. Because we are in a state that is much more ACT than SAT, you may not have that account set up yet. If your household AGI is 100,000 or less, by putting in that information into the form, it will automatically calibrate that and then waive the filing fee. And that will also be true for a non-custodial parent that has to submit information. If the student is an orphan or a ward of the court, then also, they will receive that waiver. And then otherwise, payment is credit or debit card only. The first form is that request sent to a college is going to be $25. And then subsequent forms will be 16. So if you have a student where they are applying to a lot of colleges that require it, this can add up to a couple $100s or more. So one thing we know about FAFSA is that there is, I'd say, pretty robust support in Spanish. My own organization, Fair Opportunity Project, we have a free chat tool on our website for FAFSA, and if you ask it a question in multiple different languages, it will respond in those languages. We have been working to try to create a chatbot for CSS Profile. The access to the documentation has been difficult because, again, if it's private organization status. So right now, what we've got available is there is a page on the CSS Profile website that is in Spanish. It provides a general overview of what to expect and the forms, to gather. But I did call and confirm that the actual application is only available in English. If you are working with a student that needs assistance, or their parent needs assistance in Spanish, they do have a Spanish language caller assistance line. The number's on the slide here. Dial that number, hit 6. It is staffed 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. Okay, so some general tips here. So in addition to the document that I'll be sharing with you after the call, just remember that the CSS Profile account, because of all the information it gathers, you're going to treat it like any secure account. So this can be difficult maybe because you may be looking for assistance from a variety of different people on how to answer these questions. But just remember that anyone who has access to that account is going to have access to all of those financial details that you need to put in there. The other tip that I mentioned earlier is plan on being able to access this form in perhaps multiple sessions. You may need that just because of the stamina. You may need it because of all the information that they require. A very common mistake, and I can tell you this as a parent who's had to fill this out, you really have to read the prompts carefully. So remember, you're going into one form, and it's the student. Be sure you continue to read if the question is asking you about the parent information or the student information. So even according to CSS Profile, this is a really common error, and you're going to want to watch this very carefully. And you're going to want to watch it carefully because they only allow one correction per academic year. So, use that one correction carefully. The other thing is that whether you are doing a correction, which, really would be, changing information that you've submitted, or you're adding additional schools to receive the profile form, which is not considered a correction. They caution you, they urge you to make sure you go through the form after you've added the information hit enter where you need to, and hit submit. So you can't just enter the information in that one area. You have to go through again and make sure that you've hit submit. Okay, so that's basically the high-level details that I wanted to share. Just a general reminder that we are running these webinars on Tuesdays at 12:30, and we are going to be covering a range of topics of that before, during, and after college. You can see what's coming up through our newsletter or through our social media posts. And then here is the information about how you can reach us. So our helpline number, our email helpline, and then our website. So so that's how you can get in touch with us. And I will stop sharing here to see if there are any questions.
Hi, I do have some questions. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. Andrea Michelle here. And you may have said this earlier, so if you did, please forgive me. I didn't hear it. Now, this CSS profile, is it similar to FAFSA in that you have to complete it once, and then you list, say, if you wanted to attend 5 schools who require the CSS profile, then you list all 5 schools, or do you have to, because it's school specific, have to fill out one CSS profile per school?
Good question. So no, so you will create, the student will create one profile account. They will look up the CSS code to add those schools there. And then this sophisticated skip logic that the profile does will make sure that you answer every question that each of those colleges may require.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Sure. Any other questions? And as I hear more about particular, resources or workshops that may be offered specific to, hands-on help for the profile, I will share them out through, again, our social media and our newsletter. We are continuing to, actively look for those resources to help. And we will be posting them on our website as we find them and build more of our own resources for families.
I actually do have one other question.
Sure, yeah.
So when this CSS profile to be considered for institutional aid, does that include like scholarships? Because I do have a couple of students who are like, oh no, we won't qualify for anything. My parents make whatever. But if they wanted to be considered for like an academic scholarship, would they still need to fill out the CSS profile or no?
Well, I would say yes, you should.
Okay.
And I mean, so if a college doesn't require the CSS profile at all, then, well, in that case, always look at a college's financial aid page, because sometimes they have their own application to be considered. So again, it's all driven by the college. So look on the college financial aid website, make sure you see their deadlines, make sure you see what forms they're requiring, because it may be FAFSA profile and their own form. I've done that more times than I can count. And in the case, in the case of UW-Madison, because they are instituting this requirement for institutional aid, then I would say yes, they should do it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep. All right. If there are any other questions? All right, well, thanks for joining me today. As I said, I'll send out the recording for this today's webinar, and it'll also be available on our website, debtsmarts.org, and also on our YouTube channel. And we'll be sharing out those checklists and resources that I mentioned earlier. Have a great day, everyone, and thanks for joining today.